Sure. My name's Becalelis Brodskis, and I made a film called Burrow, made in Flash, but drawn straight into Flash, not using Flash as a kind of, automatic animation tool. Because it's a loop, it's a continual loop, so the seam of frame 5 and 1 has to be totally right. So I had to sort of create a line within Flash, a sort of test line to get all the movement right, and keep checking that 5 and 1 actually that it did cross over. So I drew, in the end, I had a plan of each frame, as in frame size, 1 to 5, and then I had to break that down and go and draw each frame when exactly at the right point when the man would come into the frame, when he'd exit into the next frame. Once I had 5 different Flash files for each different frame, and then I exported that as a JPEG sequence, which I then imported into After Effects, and then brought all the frames together and then tested that it actually worked. But of course, every time that the man exits, I had to check that he was entering at the far side. One of the technical problems was actually the file size of export was huge if I just did it as an uncompressed movie. The trouble that you'll find with animation, the advantage with film and video, is that the compression can be a lot lower to keep the same kind of quality. Whereas if you export from Flash and you want the file sizes necessary for that kind of screen resolution, they were huge as movies, and it kept crashing my After Effects. So with technical support from yourselves, I was told to export it as JPEGs, and then the JPEG sequence was able to play in After Effects relatively easily. Yeah. So one of the things to consider if you are making a film, that a lot of the films are just made like sort of 5 screens, but if you really do have a film that, there's a line of action that goes all the way around 360 and meets again, and that meeting point is critical, you end up with a timing problem. And I did spend a considerable amount of time trying to work out, when the person would come back to the join. And with animation, you often do use loops. It's part of the process. Yeah, one of the things that would be brilliant to have is a screen where you can actually test it, because you are kind of working in the dark. You're always looking at a flat screen. So to have somewhere where you can go and actually see if it's actually working, be able to look around during the editing process or the creative process, that'd be ideal. Yeah. Well, personally, the works that I liked most of all from the screens I saw were the works that were treating it as a 360 rather than 5 screens, and to really think about how to engage the audience with looking at the screens. So it's quite nice also to have things going on, on one side while something else is going on the other side, which seems quite obvious, but that often wasn't the case. But then also sometimes to pare it down. I think one of the things that worked with my piece, it was very simple really, technically. It looked a lot simpler than it was. I would say, I can't remember the whole production time, but I think it was actually production time was about 6 weeks, but I was working flat out. I mean, it really was. It was, 3 in the morning, getting up at 7 to try and get it done for the deadline from the commissioning date. And half of that time, if not more, was just resolving technical issues of exporting, of how to make it seamless. The actual animating of the loop was relatively quick. I'd say half was a creative process and half was a technical creative process. And you do need computers that can cope with that kind of work. And I was only making a 6-minute, no, it was even shorter. I can't remember, it's quite a short piece. And I suppose the real danger, and it's always tempting, I'm sort of, you see it, there's all this creative potential and you want to go on and on, but I knew from past experience that when it comes to those exporting issues, things happen, they seem to always happen. And so I'd left myself a whole 2 weeks actually to export, and that was still, I think I delivered like a couple of days late, I had to come in with a hard drive. So I'd really plan, to give yourself a good 2 weeks, just when everything's finished for exporting.